Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name is Rob Wilson and this is the rather lovely Mercedes S-Class. Let's find out what it's like. Okay, so let's start as we always do at the front of the vehicle, and the first thing that strikes is just how imposing this car is. I mean, look at the size of that grille. That's straight out of the Audi playbook. It's so large that it can probably suck children off the pavement as you waft past them. I also like the inclusion of the three-pointed star sticking up out of the bonnet proudly, so you can impale your victims should you wish to. And then I guess the only other sort of thing that I can talk about is the lights. This Mercedes S-Class has LED intelligent blind you at night lights, which is a Mercedes patent. Everything sort of is nice and swoopy. It points down, all these creases point down towards your private number plate, which of course you would have because you own a Mercedes S-Class. But yeah, that's sort of it for the general design at the front. So let's move on to the side. Right, so now we're at the side of the Mercedes S-Class, and I want to point out, first of all, this is an AMG line car, so it has some very fancy 20-inch alloy wheels with the AMG logo on them. Now they are diamond cut, but they don't have the traditional black inserts. They're more like a grey anthracite, which is a different take on it. I quite like it. I like the wheel design, all very fancy. And if we move up to the windscreen, you can actually see on this side, it has the signature of Carl Benz, the founder of Benz Automotive and the person who made the first sort of proper car, if you can call it a car, back 130 odd years ago. So that's the lineage of the Mercedes brand being brought back to the forefront, really. You'll see it as you're driving along. Moving our way down the side of the vehicle, you get some nice chrome touches around the window surrounds, on the tops of the doors, and that's a proper mark of traditional luxury. It certainly used to mean that. I don't know if it still does, but I quite like it. And then I guess really not too much else to talk about apart from its swoopy design. This car is so posh that it does have a damped fuel filler flap. I've never seen that before, but I quite like it. But with all that said, let's move on to the back and see what's going on there. Okay, so here we are at the back of the Mercedes S-Class, and the first thing I'll point out to you is the badging over on that side, which says S350D, which means it has a 3-litre diesel engine, but we'll talk more about that when we drive it. We've got a nice continuation of the chrome detailing from the side with a nice strip along the boot lid. And onto the fact that there is some chrome surrounds that try and make that look like an exhaust, but obviously we know that it isn't. And if my name was Matt Watson, I would be absolutely beside myself with rage. But thankfully I'm not, so I'm just going to move on to the boot, which we can show you now. Okay, so now onto the boot. I shall open it up, where we can see just how much stuff you can fit in this car. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags. And you still have enough room left for a fully grown child. Do you want to come out?
Yeah, maybe.
Come on. Can you watch your head? Watch your head. There you go. Well done. Careful. Careful.
Mafia approved.
Mafia approved, yeah. Other features in the boot are these, I'm going to sit down, these nice little nets on the side, which normally, if you had wider items, would be in the way because this is like the widest portion of the boot here. If you were, say, a golfist and you wanted to put your bats along here, then you can, in this car, just move the net down on this little clip here, which is absolutely brilliant, and then it really opens up this space. You can do it on both sides, or you can just move them back up, and you can keep your, in this case, auto glim in there. Not sponsored. You've got some nice little tethering hooks around the place, and a 12-volt charger thing if you wanted to do your hoovering. And if you lift up the boot floor, you can find your not spare tyre, your towing eye, and a sort of bin that you could just chuck stuff in if you never wanted people to find it. You can get a fridge in the back of an S-Class, and I've seen one with a fridge in it because I actually went in one as a taxi once, and it completely ruins the boot because there's no room for luggage to go in because it's right in the middle and it sticks out a long way. But this car doesn't have it, thankfully, so it's just something to bear in mind. Let's go to the back seats. Hello. You now join me in the rather sumptuous rear seats of the Mercedes S-Class, and well, I don't really know where to start. There's some absolutely gorgeous leather everywhere. Everything's just so nice and soft touch, even all the way down at the bottom of the doors, it's still soft touch plastic. Pretty incredible, really. Things that stand out to me are the fact that I have dual controls for the windows back here, so I can put that side and this side down, because obviously if I'm being chauffeured about, I need that sort of ability to do those things. And I've got a control here for the rear blind. Look at that. Whoa. You do also up here have some nice little vanity mirrors, because you may be an important person if you're in the back of a Mercedes S-Class and you need to check your hair and your makeup before you get out and go and walk down the red carpet or something. You've got a nice little armrest that pulls out of the middle seat here. It opens up like so, and you've got actually quite a deep bit of storage in there, felt lined obviously, so that everything in there doesn't rattle. And you also have some cup holders that pop out at the end of there, which is a really nice integration, and I can demonstrate them with that. Look, they fit. They just do that. Anyway, that's that. You can also, in here, you have a little cubby which goes through, would be where the fridge would be in if you'd spec that on a higher up model, but in this car it's just a bit of extra storage. You have Isofix seats if you're into that sort of thing, and by into that sort of thing I mean have children. You have some nice wood, leather, metallic bits going on for the speakers, which in this car are by Burmester. Don't know who they are. You've got a nice little cubby on the back of the seats, which reminds me of things that you would see in, well, I've never sat in business class, but I imagine that that is business class. And you do have some nice air vents here in the centre and up on the B pillar as well, so you can have air blowing on you from many directions. You'll never be too hot or too cold in the back of this car. What I do like is that they've bothered to damp those 12-volt sockets. That is lovely. That's just going overboard. But what you have to remember is that this is the base spec S-Class. So this is this is the worst version of this car, and it's in the same way that this is the, like, you could have a base spec private jet. It's ridiculous really to think that, but this is as basic as this car gets, and it's still absolutely lovely. I do like the fact they've got these cutouts in the seats for my knees. This seat is in my driving position and I fit behind myself, my shoes, and can go under the seat in front. I actually am not pressed for headroom, which is a surprise because it's not exactly a super tall car, but even if I sit up straight my head doesn't touch, and that's including the fact it's got that sunroof blind as well. So anyway, let's move into the front and see what's going on there. And now we're in the front of the S-Class, where the opulence continues, with many peeled cows and trees plastered all over the front of the car. You have these fantastic seats which remind me of baseball gloves. They're perforated leather and they're brown, so they look like them. You have two really quite large screens. The one directly in front of you is for your driver information, speedo, revs, etc. And then the one in the middle is your navigation, media and all of that stuff. And it's all controlled through this little wheel thing. It's not touch screen. You may remember this system from older Mercedes, and it was used in Aston Martins as well, up until quite recently, if not still. And then you have some lovely, I'm going to use the word knurled buttons for controlling your climate controls, and that's great because you don't have to go into a screen and do it, which I'm sure you do on the new S-Class. You have, just a little bit further down, some little storage bits which are all beautifully damped. You push that one, a little tray comes out, it's all very nice. You've got lovely metal air vents which controlled the airflow by these little knobs that just pop out, and then you can twist them around. That's just fabulous. Look at that, that's just so luxurious and brilliant. You have the Mercedes clock proudly presented in the middle. In terms of you sort of storage solutions, you have a little cubby. Well, it's not little, it's actually quite capacious. I can put my hand fully in there, and look, it opens towards the driver. Or does it? Because the Germans with their magic wands mean that you can open it the other way if you press the button on that side. How good's that? Look. And I have to say, I have tried there was a fly in the car. I have tried to open both at the same time because I'm a fat-fingered English idiot, and it doesn't work. I can't beat the Germans on that one. Yeah, that's sort of it interior-wise. You do have another sunroof, which you can use this little button, and it opens up fully, opens up the glass house. Glove box, actually, should mention that. That's damped and full of crap, so we won't go too much into that. But yeah, it's just super, super lovely, unironically this time. But yeah, I could sit in here for ages and just absorb the luxuriousness of it. I can't wait to go and drive it, so I think we should probably do that now. Right, okay, so out in the Mercedes S-Class S350D on the open road. First impressions, wow, this thing is comfortable. I mean, seriously comfortable. It wafts along. You cannot tell what's going on outside. It's so quiet and cosseted. I imagine I've got double glazing and soundproof windscreen, soundproofing everywhere, and the ride is just so smooth, and it doesn't allow any sort of vibrations into the cabin. Only really notice it if you go over a big pothole, but otherwise it's just super smooth. You could do hundreds and hundreds of miles in this without any issue at all, and I can move my seat any which way I can possibly imagine. So I can actually go into the to the screen as well and change the lumbar and all of that sort of lovely stuff to about 10 different settings. So if I wanted to be even more comfortable, then I could do that. Oh, but wow, yeah, this is just so nice and relaxing. So in terms of performance in this S-Class, as I said before, this is an S350D. It's a 3 litre V6 diesel, and this is the base engine that you can get in this car, although it feels plenty fast enough to me. You have 254 brake horsepower, which means you can go from 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds and onto a top speed of that very German 155 miles an hour. This being a diesel engine, it is quite torquey. We've got 457 pounds-feet of torque, so it absolutely just it doesn't take off. It's not like, oh, that's quick acceleration. It just sort of pushes you back into your seat and you just surge up the road, basically. Braking feels very nice and progressive. Steering is nice and light. I've got it in comfort mode at the minute. You do have 2 settings for the air suspension. Comfort is very nice. Let's put it into sport. Airmatic Sport has come up on my dashboard. Steering has got a lot heavier all of a sudden. I wouldn't say that this car encourages you to be sporty. It's sort of a, oh, I guess I have to do that then. If you must be an arse, I can sense the car looking down on me for being in sporty setup. So I'm now behind a cyclist, typical. So let's see what the gearbox is like. Foot down. There was a good 2 seconds there of absolutely nothing at all, and that's in sport. So I guess this gearbox is very much just set up for cruising, basically. It's not set up for lightning fast changes. Let's do it again. Yeah, there's a couple of seconds where nothing happens, but then you do just absolutely surge along, and there's minimal noise coming from the engine. It's a big old diesel unit, and I have to be honest, I wouldn't really know that unless I was absolutely caning it. It's just enough to remind you that there is an engine whirring away. Okay, yes, so it's definitely not sporty, but it can absolutely handle itself. This is a big car and it weighs a lot, 2 tons, and then on the brakes, you can feel the weight under braking, but only if you brake really hard. If you're just braking normally, it's so nice and progressive and soft and smooth, like everything else. Even in sport though, the suspension feels more comfortable than most cars that I've driven. Yeah, this is really, really nice. Just at a junction now, gives you a good chance to check out the visibility, and I have to say it's very nice. There's a lot of glass house in here. You do have your 3-pointed star right up in front of you, so you can tell exactly where the front of the vehicle is. It's always handy to have. This being a Mercedes of a certain age, it does have that reversing bar on the in the back of the headlining, so when you're reversing, it gives you a visual representation with the lights that show of how close you are to something. But obviously you get reversing cameras, and there's a reversing camera that gives you sort of a fisheye lens, so you can see more towards what's coming from your left and right. So if you have to reverse off your drive, which the owner of this car does, that is an extremely useful feature. There's not much feel from the steering, but that isn't what this car's for. This car is for either being chauffeured in or absolutely munching up miles. I think I could drive this car for many hours and get out and just feel completely relaxed and not really that tired at the other end. You've got super comfortable seats, very quiet, very cosseted. Yeah. And you've got all the usual driver assist systems, so you do have your cruise control and the like. Let's see what the paddles are like if I flick one down. It does actually respond fairly quickly. I mean, it's a diesel unit, so. But yeah, 9 gears. 9 gears. But it's so smooth that you wouldn't know that there were 9 gears. Obviously for fuel economy, having 9 speeds is going to be better. The owner said the best MPG's had out of it is 45, but it averages around 35. And that is not bad at all for a car that is this big. This cabin is fantastic as well. It really sort of accentuates the width of the cabin, because it is a big car, but it doesn't necessarily feel that big, or that wide at least. I've been driving it mainly on country roads today, and I haven't felt, oh, you know, if there's a lorry or a van or something coming the other way, it hasn't been a buttock clenching moment where I thought, oh my god, I'm too close to the verge or something like that. It's manageable, and I'm sure that if you hadn't driven a car of this size before, you would very quickly get used to it. So there you go, there's a very quick drive of the Mercedes S-Class S350D. I think what I'll do now is I'll hand it back over to myself for a little bit of a conclusion. Okay then, so the Mercedes S-Class. Well, it's probably the nicest car I've ever driven in terms of just luxury. Definitely nicer than the Model S that I drove a while back, and those cars sort of are in the same bracket. This is way more luxurious on the inside. It's actually probably slightly quieter, which is the weird thing, given that that car's electric and this one has a massive sodding diesel engine under the bonnet. And I just think this one looks a lot nicer as well. It's more sort of imposing, and at the same time nicely restrained. It's not trying too hard. But yeah, that's the Mercedes S-Class. So if you've enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you've got something to say in the comments down below, please do so. If you want to see more videos like this, then remember to hit the subscribe button. And if you want to follow us in other fashions, we have all the links to our social media as well. If you want to support the channel, you can do so via Patreon, or you can become a member, and then you get access to exclusive behind the scenes content, as well as a podcast. So check that out, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.